More layoffs, more store closures, more economic hardship, but it doesn't matter because the stock market is rising, right? What a joke this has become. You can't ignore the majority and look at the few. Most of the population inside and outside of the US are worse off today than a year ago. The stimulus isn't working. Buying corporate bonds of Apple, the biggest company in the world, doesn't fix the economy, but they stuff it down your throat. Will you take it? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. When they talk about stimulus, when they talk about taking measures to support you, to support Main Street, they're talking about buying the bonds of Apple, pumping in millions of dollars regularly into a company that can literally buy a country. That's how massive they are, and they have been supported by the central bank. And not to mention the fact that interest rates have been so low for so long that these mega corporations who pay little to no taxes are able to further intensify their measures. They do not use the cash they have on hand, they use the debt. But you go to borrow debt and you're using your credit card, you're using the line of credit and all of these different things that have significantly higher interest rates. You don't get the deals they do, of course, because they are interconnected in the revolving door that is the government and the mega corporations. Now, this has been going on for a very long time. This has been present basically for eternity. The structure is designed this way and it cannot be unraveled. But we must interject what is happening here and understand it. Otherwise, we get caught up in the nonsense. There's a lot of people looking at the nonsense today, specifically today, and it is not productive. Look, I'm going to talk about what's happening in the economy. I'm going to show you the data. Then you're going to be able to analyze and understand what to do with your situation. You could take the advice from whoever you want, but you need that foundation. Let's get into it. No more ranting. Let's go. I know many of the people on my channel had also notified me of this. It is Disney laying off 28,000 employees, and perhaps it will get worse. A lot of these companies, they said, we're not going to lay anybody off. We're going to take care of our employees. But the months went on and on and on, and now 28,000 people are without a job. Now they are going to go on to the government stimulus. They're going to be getting the checks, but that puts further pressure on them. We know how this all works out. Of course, this is just one of the companies. There are so many out there that employ a lot of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And whether or not they initially laid people off, you know that as time goes on, it becomes more difficult to keep them on the books. And this is just one example. This article is talking about what's going on with United Airlines. This particular individual will be among roughly 40,000 airline workers whose jobs are likely to evaporate in an industry that has been decimated this year. And what do they want? More stimulus. That's right. I've covered it many times before. This is one industry that was able to get a bailout. What about all those individual businesses, the small businesses, the mom and pops that never got a dime and they are now shut down? This is unfortunate for them, but the big businesses, their shareholders are always happy. You know, I've seen Jim Cramer and I've seen the different analysts and everybody buy Carnival Cruise, buy this airline, buy Boeing, and so on. And they are in a completely different scenario from the employees that work at these companies. You talk about the K-shaped recovery, and it is quite absurd, unlike anything I've ever seen before of how exaggerated this has been. There is a group that unfortunately right now is worse off than they were a year ago, less than a year ago in fact, and there's another group that have been doing very, very well. But the solutions that they provide are never actually going to fix it. Printing a whole bunch of money and having government decide who the winners and losers are is such a bad idea, and yet they do it every time. They did it for the TARP bailouts. They're doing the same thing today. This is the ongoing issue that I have been covering on the channel, and it has expanded. It hit a record high as expected. You and I both knew that this would occur at some point. Here it is. In September, US retail bankruptcies and store closures hit a record. Retail bankruptcies, liquidations, and store closings in the US reached records in the first half of 2020. In the first 6 months, 18 retailers filed for Chapter 11 protection, mostly concentrated in apparel and footwear, home furnishings, grocery, and department stores. They list some of the names like JCPenney and others. These stores, I get it. I see the comments every single time. There's too many of them. The malls are too big. They occupy too much space. The rents are too high. The business model is overdone. Online business is taking over. I get it. I get it. I get it. But you do not have such a rapid change just because the business isn't very good. Maybe the management was bad. Maybe the customer service was bad. All of a sudden, practically overnight, billion-dollar businesses evaporate. It doesn't happen like that without there being an underlying crisis. Imagine these companies can't even go through the liquidation process. They're so bankrupt that their entire business model basically comes to a halt. That right there is truly understated. This is so hard to believe, but it's here in black and white. Manhattan offices are nearly empty, threatening New York City's recovery. Check out this stat. About 1 in 10 office workers have returned since earlier this year, far fewer than elsewhere, hurting local businesses. That's it. 1 in 10 have returned. As I've said before, if you've got a subway that nobody's taking anymore, there are all these little shops that people would normally visit. You got the coffee shop, you got the convenience store, you got the newsstand, you got the little restaurants and so on. If nobody is going there, all of those businesses will close. Many of these operators might have one extra employee. Well, what do you think the first thing they're going to do is? They're going to get rid of that employee. The owner is going to sit there and wait. If the months go on, they don't get enough business, they close down the shop. They had a lease that was 12 months. If they're going bankrupt, they're not paying that landlord. The landlord takes a big hit. They're not going to be able to get another renter in there. If that landlord's in trouble, the debt keeps expanding, you've got a problem with that bank. They are going to take a hit on all of their different products. If the bankruptcies get up to a small level, doesn't have to be 50% of the loans going bad, even a small level, it unravels. It literally unravels the entire debt-based system and it will be destroyed. Now they try and come in and basically cut that off, and what they do is they apply all of their different methods. They buy up the mortgage-backed securities, they buy up the commercial mortgage-backed securities, they've been buying the fallen angels, all those garbage loans, all that garbage debt, not because they want to help Main Street. That is very clear, we know that, but it's because of the entire system itself and how fragile it is. I have highlighted this in many occasions, and this is extremely important. That's why I rant on about it. There are so many nuances, there's so many details, and I just want to make that clear. I hope you appreciate it. Movie theaters in jeopardy as studios move blockbusters to 2021 and audiences stay home. There's a huge industry, whether you like it or not. Hollywood is massive. Think about all the people that work on the production of the movie itself. How many people are involved in things you wouldn't even think of? What about the catering businesses? What about the people locally that are around there that are doing well, that are able to stay in their businesses because Hollywood has employees and services they need and so on? And then you have the theaters themselves. That's a whole production in itself. There's so much more to this, but now you've got a big problem with all of this all along the line. We're talking about basically a year where these huge companies, so many of them in fact, are hurting. All right, I want to move through a lot of this as quick as possible. I just wanted to touch on a few factors here, and this is what I wanted to begin with. SocGen's math geeks built an empire. Do the sums still add up? The French bank became the world leader in equity derivatives, but the products are no longer seen as safe. There is a lot of mystery and real questionable actions that are taking place with any of these big establishments. I know that the average investor doesn't know what's going on and they simply don't care. What they're looking for is their portfolio to be worth more as time goes on. But for some people, they actually want to know. And this right here is just one further example. How many examples do I have to talk about with precious metals manipulation? Every single day I see a new article talking about it, whether they're making it clear what's happening or somebody's getting in trouble, somebody's taking the hit, even though we know that the entire industry is in on it. It's really a joke at this point. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. When you do, you are supporting me. I want to thank you for that. If you want to learn how to sell stuff online, you can do so at the AmazonGPS.com for free. The financial system, it's complex, it's convoluted, and there's so much that people need to understand to actually have an advantage here. You can learn everything in these two books. They're available at the link in the description. If you want the audiobook, themoneygps.com. Hold on. Have you seen this video? Definitely want to check it out if you haven't already. Click on it. I'll see you there.